Hey everybody, Gromlos here with another War Thunder video, and this time I will primarily take a look at two tank fights in the Absolute Sim Battle events, one in the Tiger and another one in the T-34. I have not done much with tanks in the recent months, but as most of you probably know, we recently got an improved Sim Battle version to test as an event. In those events we got to try out a few changes to sim battles, which a lot of simulator battles have asked for since quite a while. And especially when driving a tank, this has in my opinion improved the experience massively. So since I was quite impressed with the results, I thought I'd make another video and show you some footage from the ASB event to hopefully show you the things you can do in ASB that just won't work in normal simulator battles. But before I take a look at those fights, I thought I'd talk a little bit about the ASB event and give you an overview of the changes if you have missed the event, as well as give you some feedback on what in my opinion still needs to be done despite the improvements that ASB brings in simulator battle mode, especially in mixed and ground battles. Well, I'm sure most of you know by now what ASB is all about, but if not, let's go over it real quick. The event has three simple changes from the normal simulator battle mode. The minimap icons for tanks are gone, and so are the blue nameplates over friendly tanks and planes. They are gone as well, so you have to identify targets yourself. And the HUD is gone for vehicles that don't have a cockpit modeled. Now, since tanks don't have a modeled interior yet, they still do have a HUD, as it is otherwise a bit confusing using the manual gear shifts as I do. After all, the Tiger has for example 8 forward and 4 reverse gears, so you want to know your engine RPM and what gear you're in. Well, the removed minimap icons have of course a huge impact for tank gameplay in simulator battles. The fact that you can always see enemy tanks on the minimap in the normal simulator battle mode had a massively negative impact on the gameplay and also destroyed the tank combat feel. With the minimap spotting gone and looking for targets up to the player, the game becomes a lot more exciting and tense, and it simply feels a lot more like World War II tank combat if you actually have to constantly scan for targets instead of your eyes being glued to the minimap all the time. Having to look for targets yourself and that uncertainty if there might be someone sneaking up on you from behind or the side is one big reason for why simulator air battles are as exciting as they are, and it works well for tanks too. So I can't stress enough what a huge improvement this is. However, there are still a few things that are in need of improvement for simulator battles. For the tank side of things, and I will make a video focusing on the mixed battle airplane-tank interaction later, but for the tank versus tank battles, my main concern at the moment are the damage models. And I know I'm not alone with this. At the moment I feel that the damage model is in many situations too forgiving, and that leads to the game being at times being a lot more random than it needs to be. If you don't hit the ammo rack, tanks can at the moment often soak up an unrealistically huge amount of penetrating hits. I think this should be reworked for sim battles, so that penetrating hits have a more realistic outcome. To give a quick example, if an armor-piercing shell penetrates the front of a tank's turret and directly hits the gunner as well as the commander in the turret, as well as doing some other damage, that tank should simply be knocked out. However, in the current version of the game, if you shoot and penetrate the front of the enemy's turret, with your shot flying straight through the gunner as well as the commander and knocking them out, is often just a few seconds delay till the gunner is somehow replaced and the tank can fight again like nothing happened. This is both unrealistic, and we are after all talking about simulator battle mode here, as well as bad for the gameplay in my opinion, as it makes the outcome of your shots more unpredictable. That is of course not a new complaint, and I hope that after the ASB events have shown how well listening to what the players want can work, we see other improvements like damage model fixes soon as well. Now, despite the damage model problems though, I think the game is a lot of fun with the ASB changes, so let's take a look at two fights in the ASB event, and I hope I can show you what I mean. I have a shorter fight in the Tiger first, and then a longer one in the T-34-85. Well, let's start off with the fight in the Tiger 1. This match is on the Eastern Europe map, and it's a 3 capture point game mode. Now, I decided to go for the C point at the start of the match. However, I don't want to go for the point in a straight line, because that's where the enemy tanks would expect me to come from. What I like to do in general is approach the objective from the side if at all possible, to hopefully catch the tanks on the opposing team unaware. Now, while the Tiger is certainly heavy, its top speed is actually not so bad, so it does reasonably well in those kind of semi-flanking moves. The Tiger is however of course also armored very well, and in the matchup we usually have in this event, with lots of T-34-85s on the enemy team, long-range engagements work very well for the Tiger, as this is where it can use its armor to its advantage. So I do want to engage from this side of this little valley. In a light tank I would probably have tried to go around the valley and get closer to the enemy tanks first. Now as I get closer to the sea point I can spot a few targets, and as I've hoped they are not looking this way. So I fire a quick shot into the T-34 in the valley before it gets into the cover, and then I focus on the IS-1. I don't think this camo serves him very well in ASAP. Now the first shot bounced, and after that I took a quick look to the left, as sometimes T-34s uses their speed to get around the valley and could get a shot into my sight this way. Then I fire a second one into the IS-1, and this one gets through his weaker side armor and takes it out. Now there are 3 T-34s on the other side, and I engage the rear one first. This way I hope the ones in the front don't see where the shot came from. The first shot does damage, but does not kill the tank. Now I switch to the second T-34 because I figured the first one at least needs to repair before he can fire back, so I go for the other one to stop him from shooting my team. However, he's already knocked out, so I switch back to my original target. This one takes him out. Now I figure the last T-34 is already knocked out too, because he's not moving, but to make sure I fire around into him too, and indeed he is already knocked out. Now the opposing team managed to capture C. However, at this point I feel a little uncomfortable going straight for C from this side. I expect more tanks coming this way, at least the respawning T-34s, and being stuck in the valley with the cap point giving my position away, I may be at a disadvantage. So I decide to go around the river from the left and come up the other side from this way and approach C from that direction. So I should still be in the flank of enemy tanks rushing back to C from their spawn. Since the enemy team has only one cap point at this point, I hope I have the time to do that. As I go around though, the enemy team captures A as well, so I have to be a bit more aggressive now. So I move straight for C, while looking to the left occasionally to scan for targets, but we are far enough into the battle that enemy tanks can come from the other side as well, so I can't just look in one direction. Now I hear a shot and I can spot a bit of smoke from a tank firing, and as I take a closer look I can see a T-34. There are more to the left, but at the moment I have noticed only this one, or I would have fired to the ones behind it first. The T-34 starts to move away after I hit it, and is almost in cover, but I managed to get the second shot in before he's completely out of sight, and someone else finished him off after that. And then I start to move towards C again. I want to recap it before we lose too many points, but when I look towards the left again I see the silhouette of another T-34. It's almost hull down, but thankfully I have the approximate range from firing on the other T-34, so I can fire pretty accurately, and thanks to the shell trajectory at this range, the shells coming in from an angle from above can even hit the hull of the tank, even though there is no direct line of sight. The first 2 hits do good damage and set the tank on fire, but don't destroy it. But the third one though finally hit the ammo rack and the T-34 blows up. Now, we still don't have a cap point though, and the difference in cap points starts to worry me a bit. I had hoped we would be able to cap at least 1 point by now, so I get back to moving to the C point as fast as possible. I still don't feel comfortable sitting in a cap circle in ASB mode, because announcing your position to both ground and air forces in a mode where finding the opponent first is such a big deal just puts you at a disadvantage. I do hope we will eventually see different game modes in ground forces and mixed battles that do not rely on cap points. Now as I arrive in the circle, I catch a Su-122 that is just crossing the bridge in the open, and I get a hit in that sets it on fire. But as long as the 2 extinguisher charges are up, setting a tank on fire means very little at the moment. Now I keep my gun pointed to where I saw the Su-122 disappear, in case he shows up from that direction again, though I have to say I do not expect him to show up exactly from the same spot where he disappeared. Now I do have to watch both my flanks too, of course, as tanks at this stage of the battle could come from the direction of their spawn, or if they've already crossed the river, from the other side. So I am a bit preoccupied and miss the Su-122 coming out indeed exactly where he disappeared. So I don't fire at him. On the plus side though, my gun being pointed at him made him rush his shot and he missed. Now I keep my gun pointed at this spot and start to move forward, in a lower gear to move slower, as this keeps the gun more stable and allows for a snapshot on the move if necessary. The SU-122 again shows up from the same spot, but this time I'm ready and I fire a shot which damages his gun barrel, which makes his cannon backfire and sets him on fire again. And with the next shot I can finish him off. Now we finally have a cap point too, and don't lose points anymore, and the bar is still half full for our team. Now I want to go for the A point next, that's the point in the middle of the map, but I don't want to drive through the entire city if I can avoid it to get there. In the city the Tiger is at a disadvantage. Its hydraulic turret reverse is slower than the electric one of the T-34, and the close quarters negate the heavy armor, as at those close ranges the 85mm gun can penetrate the frontal armor without much trouble. So I want to go up on the hill and approach the A point from behind over a more open terrain, so that I have more chances to engage possible enemies at range until I reach the point. However, the enemy team starts to cap B as well, so I have less time than I hoped. After I reach the high ground I am surprised by a T-34 wreck that I missed at first. I'm pretty sure it's just one of the T-34s I took out earlier that is slowly rolling this way, but there are of course also players that use the quality slider for the camo to make their tank look burned out, so I fire a machine gun burst to make sure it is really just a wreck. And it is, but at the same time the enemy team starts to cap C again, which is where I just came from. As I turn around I can see another T-34 behind me. Luckily he did not notice me as he passed behind me on its way to the cap circle, so I get the chance to fire into his side. The first shot sets the T-34 on fire and the second one takes him out. Now I have to go back to recap C though, and all the while we are losing points, as the enemy team has 2 points. So after I recapped C, I have to go the fastest way to the cap point, through the city. No time to go around anymore. As I finally reach the A point, there is almost no time left, so I have to drive into the cap pretty fast to stop our team from losing points. There sadly isn't any time for fancy maneuvers anymore. Now this point is difficult to cap as enemies can show up from many different directions. Since B was the last point the enemy team capped, I simply gambled that this is the way they will come from and set up my tank this way. Sadly, as soon as I do so I can hear an engine behind me, and before I can start to turn around, a SU-122 blows up my tank. So this is it for the battle in the Tiger. I try to go back in the plane, but the battle ends before I can get back. Well then, let's take a look at another battle in the T-34-85. Now the T-34 I'm driving here is the T5T version. Compared to the other T-34-85 we have in game, this one has a slightly slower rate of fire and does not get APCR rounds. There are 2 APHE rounds, the A and the K, you can pick on this tank. The K round, which is the unlock round, has more penetration, but it feels to me it does less damage than the A, so I bring both. For shots into the flanks I prefer the A round, and the K if I have to get through the heavier frontal armor. Now, we are on the same map as before and start from the same side, so the basic idea is the same than in a game that is the Tiger. I want to go for C, but use the speed of the tank to try to get into the enemy flank. The T-34 is of course faster than the Tiger, so it is more efficient at it. Now I spot quite a few targets on the other side of the valley, and I could start to engage them from here. However, this time I'm not in the Tiger, so a long-range shootout is not the best option. At this range the 85mm will have trouble penetrating a Tiger, so I want to avoid giving my position away already and risk a long-range shootout with a few Tigers with no cover around for me to take. So unlike the game in the Tiger, I want to get around the river and to the other side of the valley right away to hopefully engage the opposing team from the side at a somewhat shorter range. As I get to the other side of the valley and start to climb up the slope, I find myself in a very good position to attack, as I can do so sitting right at the reverse slope, so if the enemy tanks spot me and turn my way, I can just roll backwards down the hill and I'm in cover again. And I'm in the flank of the enemy team. I can see a few Tigers and all the way in the rear a Panzer IV. So again I start with the target that is all the way in the rear to reduce the risk that the other tanks see where the shot came from. I get the Panzer IV, but after that I lose sight on the Tiger I wanted to shoot next for a second, as it was hidden behind the bush. But then I can see him fire his gun, and I move up a bit to get a shot. I aim straight for the rear ammo storage below the turret. That is the one which, according to my experience, will become empty last if the tank does not carry a full ammo load. And I hit it. Now there's one more Tiger up here, one that I missed at first and is sitting a little bit more to the rear. Luckily, he did not see where I shot from anyway. And again I try to aim for the rear ammo rack, but the shot goes just a little bit low and passes below the ammo rack without hitting it. The Tiger starts to charge forward as I hit it. It seems he wants to get into cover by driving into the valley. I don't lead my next shot enough, and it only hits the engine compartment and sets the tank on fire, but it's not enough to knock out the engine and stop him, it seems. Now I fired a third shot after him, but again I missed the ammo rack. Now I was under the impression that the Tiger did not know where I was shooting from, so I decide to go after him to attack him from the rear. I also want to eventually take cover in the valley, because there could be more tanks coming from their spawn and I don't want to stay up here forever as they could get into my side. I keep looking for contacts from that side as I move up, but I can't see any. As I get closer towards the valley, I can spot another Tiger on the other side of the river and I think about engaging him, but he moved behind the building and out of sight, so I keep going for the other Tiger. And there's one just moving over the bridge. I assume this is the one I shot earlier. I aim for the ammo rack again, and this time I hit it and the Tiger blows up. As I keep moving up though, I notice that this was not the Tiger I shot earlier. This one is still sitting in front of the bridge, probably repairing. Now as I engage him, I move down the slope of the valley a bit, so that I'm in cover from the tanks that are possibly coming from the enemy spawn point. My first shot bounces, but the second one gets through the rear of the turret and finishes him off. So with this Tiger knocked out, the cap is clear for now and I can start to take over C. Now I still don't like sitting in the cap circle while it radios my position to everyone on the map, but since I lost the game in the Tiger because of the cap points, I want to go for the cap points a bit more aggressively in this match. I know there is at least one Tiger still close by, the one I saw disappear behind the house earlier, and I expect he might come back as I start to cap C. So I move over the bridge to the other side of the valley, and after I reach the other side, I turn to the right where I saw the black Tiger disappear, in case he comes back from that direction. At the same time, I'm worried about enemy tanks showing up from the other side of the valley, so I have to divide my attention a bit and keep checking other directions as well. But I think the Tiger is the biggest threat for now. And indeed, after a bit I can see a tracer of a shot fly past where I am looking and taking out an IS-1, so the Tiger 1 is indeed still there. So after the cap is complete, I immediately start moving along the small road parallel to the one I expect the Tiger to be on. I hope I might get a shot at it through one of the side alleys, and if not I can swing around and hopefully engage the Tiger from the rear. I passed by two of the small side alleys and I could not get eyes on the Tiger, so I decide to swing around here and go back towards C on the road on which I expect the Tiger to be on. As I do so though, I get the message that C is getting capped, so it seems that the Tiger already made its way back into the cap circle, and I figure I follow and hope that the Tiger will be looking into another direction as I arrive, since I am coming the same way that the Tiger did. I hope he assumes an enemy won't show up from the same direction he just came in. Now, while I move closer, I can hear some cannon fire above me. That is the direction on which our spawn is located, so I hope it's friendly tanks up there, but I'm not sure. But for now the Tiger on C has priority. I make my way around the right side of this building. In hindsight, it would have been better to go around the left. Now, I change my ammo pre-selection to the higher penetration rounds. In any case, as I come around the building, I can see the Tiger. He is not looking my way, but not completely the wrong direction either, and he saw me. Now the hull is far too well angled to penetrate on the side or front, so I fire at the turret as it comes around, as it presents a flat surface even though it's a bit thicker. My first shot hits and damages the gun barrel of the Tiger, which is very vulnerable on this tank. So as the Tiger fires back, its gun barrel blows up. Now the second shot with the higher penetration round loaded goes through the gunner side, and the penetration knocks out the gunner and the commander. Now the next shot does some additional damage, but not enough to knock the tank out. Now I fire a third shot, but it seems everything that can be knocked out by penetration hit at this point is already knocked out. and I don't want to sit here till the Tiger repairs its gun, so I decide to move up and fire at the ammo rack from the side. The first shot bounces as the angle was too steep, but the second one goes through and blows up the ammo. Now I can recapture the C point, and I decide to take some cover behind that house so that I have at least some cover from that side. I'm still a bit worried about enemy tanks showing up from their spawn, but I figure at this point in the battle it is more likely that the enemy opposition is coming from the middle of the map, from the direction of the other two cap points. However, the A cap point, which is the closer one of the other two cap points, is being currently kept by friendlies, so I figure it's probably somewhat safe at the moment. I am almost done capping C, but an enemy Stuka has noticed me capping this point and is coming in to attack. I noticed it a little bit too late, so I could not get my gun barrel elevated quickly enough to shoot it down, which would have been easy if a plane comes in at such a flat angle, but the Stuka also drops his bombs too soon and they land way too short. Now I could see that the Stuka dropped 3 bombs, that is as much as it can carry, so I know he is not a threat any longer until he reloads at the airfield. So I start making my way towards the other cap points. Currently the enemy has only B, so I move that direction. But as I do so, the enemy team starts to cap A in the middle of the city, so I'd switch my direction and move that way, and I am soon joined by a second T-34-85. Now the enemy team has uncapped A, but is no longer capping it, so I know there is nobody in the cap circle right now, but at least close to it. I figure the other T-34 is going to take the first entrance to the cap circle, and I figure it's probably a good idea if we don't show up from the same direction, so I move up a bit more and take another entrance to the cap circle a little bit further up. The second T-34 is indeed taking a parallel road further down, so we enter the cap from 2 different roads. I can't spot anything as I move towards the cap circle, but as I exit the small road I can hear a shot coming from the front, but since I was looking in the wrong direction I did not see where it was coming from and I can't spot anything. But suddenly a second shot goes out and takes out the second T-34. But this time I saw where it was coming from, a well-hidden Tiger behind an umbrella. I again aim for the ammo rack and manage to take the Tiger out. Now I move into the cap circle to cap A. Again, with so many different approach routes, I simply gambled that an enemy is most likely to show up from the direction of B, which they have capped. I do, however, of course, look in all directions while I wait for the cap to finish. Now, I turn around to look behind me to look for possible enemies coming in from that direction, but as I turn back around I have another Tiger sitting right in front of me. I can't get the turret around fast enough so he gets the first shot off, but luckily for me it only ricochets off the gun barrel. I try to go for another ammo rack shot again, but I aim for the wrong one, the one in the front is empty. I do, however, manage to do enough damage to the Tiger that he can't fire back right away. Now the Tiger turned, so I could not get a second shot into his side again. I try to go for a shot at his gun barrel, but it did not do any damage, so I go for the gunner scope again, and this one goes through and knocks him out. Now with the A point under our control I start to move towards B. While I do so, the enemy team starts to eventually cap all the way back on the other side of the map at C. Now at this point I start to become a little bit careless. With so many targets already taken out, I figure the one at C might be the last enemy tank in the game. Also B is in the hands of the enemy for so long at this point that any enemy tanks that might have been there had lots of time to move away from it to cap other points. In short, I simply did not expect to run into any more opposition on my way to B and went there a bit carelessly. That gives the Jagdpanzer 470 a chance to shoot at me from the side, as I charged past. But luckily the shot only hit the tracks, and from that position above the Jagdpanzer I can shoot down on the sloped armor, which negates the slope and almost guarantees a penetration. The first shot did enough damage to prevent him from firing a second time, and the second one takes him out. Now after that I proceed to the B point and cap the point, and after I do so I want to back up into cover in reverse and overwatch B from cover. However, as I pass the bridge and get vision on the other side of the river, the respawned Jagdpanzer 470 is already there. I try to get a shot off, but the Jagdpanzer fires first and takes out my gun and turret drives. Now I don't think I can get into cover by driving backwards fast enough before the Jagdpanzer reloads for its second shot, so I drive forward to the bridge and start to repair. I hope the Jagdpanzer is reluctant to cross the bridge and gives me enough time to repair the tank. And it seems for now the Jagdpanzer is indeed only capping the point and not rushing over the bridge yet. I don't know if he's aware of how heavily damaged my tank is at this point, but my repair time is surprisingly short. Those repairs are also something that should probably not be possible in this way in simulator battle, but in this case it works in my favor. Now eventually the Jagdpanzer does start to make its way over the bridge, and it's going to be close. The repairs are almost done. The Jagdpanzer just reaches the top of the bridge as my repairs finish, and the Jagdpanzer fires first but bounces off the turret. And I aim for the exposed lower hull, which provides the best chances for penetration. The shot goes through and knocks out the transmission of the Jagdpanzer, pinning him in place, so I move forward to be out of his line of fire. My loader is injured though, so I am reloading very slowly. I fire a second shot through the lower plate, but I don't do much additional damage it seems, so I switch back to the A round, which I feel do more damage at the expense of lower penetration, but from this angle against the lower plate of the tank I do not need much penetration. I am a bit nervous that the Jagdpanzer might be able to repair fast enough to get moving again before I can reload my cannon, as I have just seen how short those repair times can be. But my gun reloads in time, and this third shot is enough to take the Jagdpanzer 4 out. And well, this is it for this game. I hope those two games showed off the difference between ASB and the old SB mode, and what you can do without the minimap, especially when it comes to positioning and flanking. I just have to say, the game is a lot more fun this way, even though there are of course still things that need improvement. Overall I would say though, ASB is a huge step in the right direction. Well, and this is it for this video. As always, I hope it was entertaining, thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you next time.